Hello, and today we'll be playing Nerus. We're going to start with the prologue and see what it's all about. Prologue, the Purple Manor, the first and last move. Sax is a young state sister who committed some mistakes as compensation for his crimes. He is sent to serve as a warper under the wing of Nerus, a great state sister. But as his relationship with Nerus gets stronger and strange events start creeping into his new life, Sax comes to a realization about himself. Difficulty merciless. For a beginner, this is nothing but a one-sided assault. Leaves and branches broke under my bare feet as I walked deeper into the dark forest. A small chill ran down my spine as a cold but gentle wind nudged me forward. The darkness that enveloped me seemed to expand endlessly. I had lost track of how long ago I reached the edge of the forest and decided to dive into its depths. However, that didn't bother me, for I knew I would arrive at my destination sooner or later. I wasn't in a hurry. If that was the case, I would have walked there. As a matter of fact, I decided to make my way there on foot for some additional time for myself, to prepare for what was coming. I had gotten myself into quite a predicament back then, and so I got summoned by my great sea sister in order to discuss how I would make amends. Although, considering my abilities and that they have asked me to bring some clothes and other everyday life items, I could make a good guess as to what my punishment would be. If I was right, that would mean things weren't going to be too bad, but that knowledge hardly prevented a knot from forming in my throat. A foreboding feeling that what awaited me would be much worse than what I was anticipating loomed over me. To make matters worse, I keep recalling the scene that had taken place in my room but a few hours ago. After that, I would have preferred to run away, perhaps to hide for a while, or even look for a new place to call home. Unfortunately, not turning myself in wasn't an option. Refusing to meet with a great sister when summoned will only make my situation dire. And if the safe sisters chose a son and abandoned me as a result, then he would take me in. There's no place in the world for us that wasn't with our own kin. I knew that well. Huh? About as fancy as I expected, although it is a bit smaller. Once I drew close to the end of the forest, I was greeted by the sight of a tall building, its walls covered by thick vines. Through the plant life, a few windows could be seen. However, it was too dark for me to make out anything inside. Can't say I appreciate how useless that place makes my night vision feel. Why does he have to be staying at such a gloomy place? I didn't see any doors, so I proceeded to walk my way around the mansion in order to find the entrance. It didn't take me long to arrive at what seemed to be the front entrance. There I saw a fellow sea sitter standing by the door. He had a peculiar appearance. His bald head was covered in yellow, worn scales. Pointy, crooked teeth stuck out from his mouth, and he had small but bulbous brown eyes. His fancy black uniform, as well as the solemn look in his eyes, made it evident he was a servant of the house. He had been waiting for me, I assumed. I cleared my throat and approached him. As soon as he saw me, those pointy teeth disappeared back into his mouth. Excuse me, this is the residence of Nerus, yes? Indeed. We have been spared to you, Lord Sax. Would you like me to carry your luggage? Yes, here you go. Good. The master is currently working. I will take your luggage to your new quarters and inform him of your arrival afterward. But first allow me to guide you to the parlor, where you may wait for him. New quarters, huh? Of course, lead the way. We enter the mansion, stepping into a long, dark hallway. We walked until we reached a tall door to our right, near the end of the corridor. We opened the door, revealing a grand room decorated with expensive-looking furniture and walls with intricate designs made in shiny metal. Go in, please. Now, if you'll excuse me, the servant left me alone in the, to be frank, somewhat eerie parlor. But it wasn't just that room. Pretty much the entire place was very dimly lit, giving it a ghastly vibe. After a few seconds of just standing there, looking somewhat dumb, I decided to make myself comfortable on one of the nearby sofas. First thing I took notice of as I climbed onto it was how big the sofa and everything else inside of the house was. It wasn't surprising. It was known Nerus was a huge man, even at his smallest size. I had only ever seen him in video footage up to this point, but even there, he stood out because of his height alone. But still, seeing firsthand the place where he lived, as well as the size of the furniture he used, made me realize I hadn't grasped just how huge he was. And it wasn't long until the man himself stood up. The door swung open, and from the other side, an immense saddle with 4 piercing red eyes emerged. But I didn't see them as eyes, no. What I perceived were 4 wings of unnaturally colored fire, floating and shining upon otherwise empty pits. I must confess the sight was so intimidating that my body sank further into the sofa of its own. It was an inappropriate reaction. However, as the silhouette stepped deeper into the room, the shadows vanished to reveal the abundant pale fur under, as well as a fancy black and red suit. His full appearance was quite a sight to behold in person. It paralyzed me, now not out of fear but admiration. Maybe this aura of grandness was what allowed him to get so popular among those acquainted with him, I thought. You must be Sax. I welcome you to my humble dwelling. His voice was deep, strong, and it carried a regal feeling with it. Yeah. Nerus blinked but remained still otherwise. He was waiting for me to do something, much to my confusion. It would seem that in my awe for his gigantic visage, I had forgotten my manners. As soon as I realized my mistake, I jumped from the sofa, landing on the floor on one knee. I'm sorry. Thank you for having me, great Sea-Sitter. I then brought one hand to my chest and bowed deeply. Nerus sighed as if exasperated by my greeting and signaled me to get back to my feet. He sat on the sofa across the room from mine. Although a bit disheartened by his cold attitude, I obeyed his command. I understand you have been causing trouble for your family. A bad look for them, but especially for you, considering the role they have come to fill. I heard you even managed to get the angels involved. Yes, now to be frank, sir, things got out of hand. It wasn't my intention for my pranks to go this far. Nerus paused, listening to me. Then without doing as much as changing his expression, he continued speaking. I imagined that was the case. One would need to be a fool to intentionally attract the angels to his fellow shape-sitters. Nevertheless, it being an accident does not make the situation any less severe. Yes, you're right. Now, we aren't here to discuss your transgressions. The investigation regarding these have already concluded. Let us get to the point. Despite you putting it to a mischievous use, it came to my attention you are fairly skilled at warping magic, correct? The sudden change in topic made me raise an eyebrow, but I soon figured what he was getting at. It seemed my hunch had been spot on despite my worries. I felt waves of relief washing over me, but I tried to not let it show. Yes, that's right. Yours is rare, yet highly demanded magic. Normally, we would settle this in a different manner, but given the circumstances, I decided it would be convenient to allow you to train your abilities in a more constructive manner, that is, under my surveillance. Is that so? But surely you have a warper here already. Or will they act as my teacher? I do not want to think I am taking advantage of the situation, but it is quite convenient you arrived here at this time. Our warper became indisposed not long ago, but let us not stray from the main topic. I am short on time at the moment. Okay, I understand. Now, be warned. You shall not be given special treatment. Underperform or commit buffoonery again, and I will be forced to give you a more severe punishment. What you did in the long run will not be more than a temporary setback for your family. However, that does not mean us safe-sitters should tolerate such mischief. Yes, I understand. Thank you for allowing me to serve you, despite what I've done. I bowed my head deeply once again. Yes, I see you're an honest kid. Keep calm. Listen to what you are told to do, and you will be all right. At that moment, there was a warmth in Nerus' words that contrasted with the rest of his strict, ice-cold persona. I didn't know what to make out of it back then, but I was hoping to ask you a few questions, but that will have to wait until another occasion. But now, feel free to go make sure everything is in order with your bedchamber. Go up the stairs and enter the second door to the right. Yes, thank you so much for your hospitality. I jumped off the sofa and started making my way out of the parlor. But when I arrived at the door, I stopped in my tracks and turned around, setting my gaze upon the great safe-sitter a few steps behind me. By the way, sir? Yes. No, nothing. It was a dumb question. Oh. Wouldn't be good to say something, buffoony enough to earn me a worse punishment on my first day here, now would it? I quit aside at my miserable attempt at comedy, but I tried my best to give him a smile regardless. Nerus looked straight at me. At first it seemed like he wouldn't react at all, but after a few seconds he let out an amused puff. I imagine I must have looked quite surprised and awkward. Had he found that funny, or was he just trying to be kind? Anyhow, figuring I shouldn't take more of his time, I decided to take the fact that he even reacted in a non-negative manner as a victory. I smiled this time genuinely and excused myself from the parlor, setting off to my new room. My bedchamber counted with a king-size bed, a mirror, a couple of drawers, and even a small bathroom. However, the first thing that caught my attention was my suitcase resting on the bed. When I opened it, I noticed the servant from earlier had gone through the trouble of moving my clothes to the closet. It was empty except for a few other belongings. For the time being, I opted to close the suitcase and lower it to the floor so I could lie down on the bed. The last few hours had been rather intense. I craved for a bit of respite. It crossed my mind that I was taking the prospect of having my freedom taken away, as well as being forced to serve someone else, a bit too lightly. But I suppose in a way it had accomplished what I wanted. I didn't care if I had merely moved from one cage to another. Being away from that house, performing a different job was enough for me. Seemed to be as much of an amicable person as I had heard. Cold but compassionate underneath it all. Although perhaps he was acting in his own best interest. The expansion of the safe sector's reach depended on the recruitment of new warpers. So it would be logical if he had taken advantage of the circumstances to make me work for him. No, to be honest, that is exactly what had happened. His personal warper wasn't even indisposed, as he affirmed, but he had been transferred off in preparation for my arrival. But even so, the fact that things had turned out this way was like a blessing for me, especially after being so scared earlier. I believed that he would take good care of me. It felt like someone nudging me awake, and once I opened my eyes, I saw the servant's blurry figure standing over me. My apologies for interrupting your sleep, Lord Sachs, but the master requests your presence in his study. Of course. Okay, I'll be there right away. Just give me a moment to wake up. The servant bowed and excused himself out of the room. I rubbed my eyes until my vision regained clarity, then I got up and threw my arms up, stretching until the weight in my limbs melted off. I walked up to the mirror to check if my clothes weren't too wrinkled. Since they seemed to be alright, I exited into the hallway. The servant was waiting for me there. I followed him to Nerus' study. I apologize for keeping you waiting, Master. Lord Sachs was taking a nap. The servant said as soon as we entered the room. It took all my might, resisting the impulse to give him a furious glare. Nerus had been reading a letter, but upon seeing us come in, he returned it to his envelope and put it away in one of the desk's drawers. Thank you, Sevils. You are dismissed. The servant Sevils bowed to his master and exited the study. Nerus gestured to me to take the seat in front of him. It is worth noting that Nerus' study was as ghastly and cold as the rest of the house. At that point, I started wondering if, by any chance, prolonged exposure to light made his eyes hurt. Well, Sachs, I wish to ask you a few questions and give you a quick rundown on the job you will be doing here. Okay? The first question concerns the incident you caused. Oh? Consider this a personal question, but I'm curious about what possessed you to do such a thing. According to your confession, your distaste for your family's work was your motivation, but I find it hard to believe that was the sole factor. No, that is really all there was to it. I started looking him in the eyes. I felt his gaze pierce me like four daggers scanning for something hidden. I had to fight the impulse to look away. But what he said next was, I see. Very well, moving on. About your magic, I understand it is not a simple teleportation ability, yes? Oh, that's right. It is a bit more specific than that. What I can do is switch the position of two objects of roughly the same size. I think you asked because you plan to have me deliver letters, packages, and such. If you are concerned this limitation will get in the way, don't worry. I can switch places with other objects at a destination to deliver whatever you want me to and switch back. It shouldn't be a problem. Good to know. Just make sure to never teleport directly inside your destination, but somewhere nearby. This is advice I give to all warpers, and considering your magic's quirks, it is especially relevant for you. You do not want to startle anyone or get confused for a thief. Yes, good point. Now then. Nerus proceeded to talk about the worlds I would be visiting, as well about the proper etiquette when interacting with the safe centers that would receive me. He also told me that I would need to accompany him to any meeting or speech he attended to, since I would be his main means of transportation. He gesticulated with his hands the entire time during the explanation. Not much was normal, but now that I was closer to him, I realized there was something off about it. A glance at him was enough to tell there should be considerable strength and weight behind his movements. Yet he handled himself with such gentleness and grace that every time he let his hands fall on the desk or touch something, it didn't feel any different if I had done it instead. It was as if I was speaking with someone not much bigger than me, despite him nearly doubling me in height. Obviously, he shouldn't go about smashing everything in his path, but with all due respect, All this restraint struck me as unnatural. I couldn't help but wonder how long it took him to attain that level of control. Sax, are you listening? I'm so sorry. I was zoning out. We will have to do something about that. Several high-ranking state sisters and the great state sisters will take offense if you zone out when addressed by them. Yeah. That should be about everything. Do you have any questions? So about the etiquette thing, it sounds complicated, so I'll need help to get it down. Will you help me practice? I said with a smile. If you need a lesson in etiquette, usually it is Sevils who handles that. I see. I will have jobs for you before long. I recommend you go look for him post-haste. Understood. If that's everything, then I'll be on my way, sir. Thank you for everything. Now, if you'll excuse me, yes, take care. How curious. Once the door clicked closed, I opened the drawer once more. The first thing that came into sight was the letter I had been waiting before Sax and Seville sold up. The letter had been delivered by another warper a few hours ago. It was from Sax's father. He seemed worried, said that his son would attempt to cause a ruckus here, as well as he asked me to be comprehensive, to keep an eye on him and other requests of that nature. To me, it looked as if he was trying to save face, though. However, he did mention something interesting. I moved the letter aside and dug through the other documents until I found an old folder near the bottom. I took it out and opened it. It was a report concerning the Soronisia cases. Now, since this was an issue that affected only us safe centers, I assume most people will require an explanation as to what this Soronisia was. It was a condition discovered shortly after the Battle of the Aeon. Around 200 years ago at this time, it was not some sort of virus nor contagious disease but a birth condition. A corporeal being self has two components, their soul and their essence and their matter. What's eternal and what's temporary. But healthy safe centers and angels too had the ability to violate this principle. In addition to being unaging, we were able to keep our essence in the event our bodies were destroyed. Thanks to this, we were able to survive as souls and gather power to regenerate our bodies. This was the power of remembrance. It wouldn't have been an exaggeration to call us immortal. However, the Soronisia changed all this. There started surfacing cases of safe centers who found themselves unable to regenerate, or rather, it was a condition discovered shortly after the Battle of the Aeon, around 200 years ago at this time. It was not some sort of virus, nor contagious disease, but a birth condition. A corporeal being self has two components, their soul and their essence. Their essence and their matter. What's eternal and what's temporary. But healthy safe centers and angels too had the ability to violate this principle. In addition to being unaging, we were able to keep our essence in the event our bodies were destroyed. Thanks to this, we were able to survive as souls and gather power to regenerate our bodies. This was the power of remembrance. It wouldn't have been an exaggeration to call us immortal. However, the Soronisia changed all this. There started surfacing cases of safe centers who found themselves unable to regenerate, or rather whose souls had lost that capability to remember their essence. Their amnesiac souls acted like mortal souls, looking for new bodies to inhabit, to be reborn with no memories or sense of who they once were. The first generation of Soronisiacs grew older and died of old age as well. attended the concept of us being affected by the passage of time had been unthinkable. But the illness eventually stopped manifesting this way, leaving only the forgetting symptom. This is what we call the second generation of soul amnesiacs. In his letter, Sax's father had confessed to me that his son belonged to this second generation. I did not understand the petty squabbles being between high-ranking state centers, but I suspected he had decided to hide that detail in order to avoid some kind of perceived humiliation. Since his son was now under my care, he must have felt pressed to tell me so I would not find out the hard way in the event tragedy befell Sax. I found it ridiculous, to be honest. I assumed Sax was made to hide it as well. I still request he is added to the records next time I send this back to Nomro, although it would be wise to consult with the doctor that examined him first. I will have to write back to his father to ask for more information. I put the folder back in its place, closed the door, and opened a different one to retrieve an envelope and a blank piece of paper. Then grabbed my pen and started writing. Still, this does not answer any of my questions. Now Sax will be living here from now on. There will be plenty of time to learn more about him and for him to tell me whatever else he is hiding. He does not seem as conceited as the most obnoxious nobles thus because I could ask him directly. But for now, let us wait and see what happens. After I wrote the letter and put it alongside all the correspondence Sax would deliver it in the following days, I went back to work. For hours, the forms and documents were all my eyes would pay attention to. From the study, I commanded the hundreds of nobles under my jurisdiction. They, in change, would send me reports regarding the gathering material sources of resources or the harvesting gnosis. Every day I would go over the paperwork and sign it. Afterwards, I would send it to Nomino. Then I would decide how to allocate the resources we had and send new orders to the nobles, who would then mobilize their legions accordingly. Writing a few papers was all I needed to dictate in which direction the web of purification would span next. I was a spider weaving the strings that would capture the souls of mortals. This task required planning, of course, but the way I executed it was almost primal. Read, assess, command, day after day, hour after hour. I would automatically carry out these three actions in an endless loop. As Cloud doesn't think as it points at the same successive numbers endlessly, and neither do I. This should be enough for today. The Cloud's arrow marked an hour left before supper by the time I decided to wrap things up and go outside to the front garden. I was watering my white flowers when I heard someone approaching. It looked like Sax and Sevils had still been practicing on the back. The small state center let out a surprised exclamation when he saw me. "Oh, hello there, sir. Greetings." I nodded in their direction. Sevils bowed to me and then turned to Sax. "Make sure to be at the dining hall in about an hour, Lord Sax." "Sure." Sevils walked into the mansion, but Sax stayed behind. It didn't take long for him to become captivated by the flowers. "Do you take care of the garden by yourself, sir?" "Most of the time, yes. Sevils helps very occasionally." "I wasn't aware you could grow this kind of plant in complete darkness." "How do you do it?" "There are many ways." I really wanted to make small talk, but I didn't know what to say. I was drawing a blank. That was all I could get to come out. A bit later, I managed to catch an idea in the sea of my consciousness. It was just a simple question that I felt embarrassed for taking so long to come up with. Is there any flower that got your attention? Sachs brought a finger to his chin as he looked down at the flowers. To be more specific, he was looking at the Sachs clearly wanted to make small talk, but I didn't know what to say. I was drawing a blank. That was all I could get to come out. A bit later, I managed to catch an idea in the sea of my consciousness. It was such a simple question that I felt embarrassed for taking so long to come up with it. Is there any flower that got your attention? Sachs brought a finger to his chin as he looked down at the flowers. To be more specific, he was looking at the ones with the white glow. I was certain he'd say those were his favorites, but then he looked at the other side and pointed at the roses. Call me simple-minded, but I like those. Let's see. That feathered reptile looked at me and then tilted his head, his tongue briefly sticking out of his mouth. I'm assuming the white ones are your favorites. Oh, yes. They're very pretty. Silence settled in shortly after. I tried to come up with something else to say, but to no avail. Sachs still stayed for a few more minutes before saying he'd go lie down until supper was ready. Feeling a bit hesitant, I nodded, and then he went his way. What is wrong with me? I finished with the garden just in time for supper. I put the watering can down, washed and dried my hands with a handkerchief, and walked into the mansion. I sat on the end of the table, and Sachs decided to sit to my left. Although he saw me a glance every once in a while, he remained silent throughout the supper. The first one to finish was me, but I waited for several to come from the kitchen and collect the dishes before telling him and Sachs to have a good night. Oh, okay, good night. Sleep well, master. I took off all my clothes before laying down on the bed, staring at the ceiling for a moment before I closed my eyes. Tomorrow, this day would start anew, like I already had countless times. But what I didn't know was that this cycle wouldn't last much longer. The following days were pretty rough. On paper, having several teach me etiquette sounded simple, but it turned out there were quite a lot of rules. I remember every once in a while, a state-center carrier would come home to deliver something for my family. They would always conduct themselves with exaggerated elegance, as if their every movement was part of a play script. I guess that description turned out to be quite amped. It wasn't the kind of thing you could learn with just a few hours of practice, but Sales kept encouraging me. He reassured me that even if I didn't have all of it down by the time my first job, going in with a bit of practice was preferable to going in blind. I couldn't argue against that. No, Lord Sachs, your pasta was off. Let us start over. By the way, Sevels, why do you keep calling me Lord Sachs? I'm afraid I don't understand the question. I mean, I'm a servant of Nerus as well now, am I not? It seems odd to me that you keep calling me a lord despite that. Oh, I see. Your current occupation doesn't erase the fact noble blood flows through your veins, Lord Sachs. If all of us who stand beneath the master said the same way because of that fact, then there wouldn't be any difference between me and any other Satan who you might find out there, now would there? That would be truly heartbreaking, the servant said with a solemn voice, although he brought his hand to his chin and giggled a second after. I guess so. You really care about your job, huh? Why, yes, the master might not be the most cheerful person, but working for him has brought me a great sense of fulfillment. Maybe it doesn't mean as much to me because I'm still young compared to most safe sitters. But I figure for someone as old as him, having something that gives him fulfillment, as he calls it, must be a pretty huge deal. What's that? Is something the matter? You're making quite a scary face right now. Am I? Sorry, it wasn't anything you said. I just recalled something unpleasant. Let us resume practice, if that is what you wish. But first, let's talk about your panicking. Oh boy. Practicing with Cephals wasn't bad at all. I found myself having fun despite struggling with his lessons. As for Nerus, sometimes we would talk in his study whenever he had a job for me. But every once in a while, when going for a walk outside the house, I would find him taking care of flowers. At those times, I would approach him and try to make a little chat. At first, I struggled to find a conversation topic since I didn't know much about his personal tastes. But one day, I asked him if he had any good books. If he had any books he would recommend me to read in my free time. He listed a couple of titles, and since then, whichever book I was reading became our conversation topic. I like to think he enjoyed our little chats, but I couldn't tell with his expression always being so stiff. But to me, he seemed more awkward than disinterested. At times he would look annoyed, but eventually I noticed those glares were directed at me. Sometimes he would remain silent for minutes, staring at a wall or at a particular flower with a look I couldn't decipher. He started thinking he was perhaps somewhat of a hermit and not good with people outside work. Anyway, the worst part of these days was the wave of anxiety that hit me every time Nerus called me to carry out a job for him. Even if things went smoothly once I came back, I dropped in bed mentally exhausted. The fear of mixing up my lines, losing my balance, or even accidentally smacking someone with my tail when doing those dance-like moves haunted me. Thankfully, the last one only happened once. But despite my worries, I can say that this was one of the most treasured periods of my life. It would sometimes get a bit lonely or boring, but in time, I grew to feel warm at the presence of those two, and that was all I needed. Besides, it wasn't like my previous life hadn't come with its fair share of isolation. And now that I'm talking about this, I think it's a good moment to bring up the first odd thing I noticed soon after I started living here. Namely the fact that the house seemed uninhabited besides the three of us. After my second set of etiquette practice, I realized that I hadn't seen anyone besides Nerus and Cephals yet, so I brought it up with the servant. That's because we are the only ones living here. Before you came, there was the master's former warper as well. And why is that? I would have expected the house of a great citizen to be brimming with life. The master has told me he enjoys the calm and quiet. Perhaps bringing in a big number of people will ruin that for him. Perhaps. Well, you seem to be handling yourself pretty well despite being the only servant here. I haven't spotted even a speck of dust so far, although the house is pretty dark. No need to praise me, Lord Sax. Let us return inside. I must prepare supper. Will you be joining the master again, or will you rather eat in your bedroom? I already told you, I would rather join. One day, when I came back from making a delivery, I was perceived by Cephals at the entrance. He had news for me. Lord Sax, a guest arrived while you were out. He will be joining us for supper. Make sure to look your best. I thanked him and went upstairs to rest. Then at the usual time, descended to the dining hall. When I arrived, Nerus was sitting at his usual spot At the end of the table, on the chair to his right, sat a noble. Welcome back, Sax. I suspect several has already informed you we have a guest tonight, but allow me to introduce you. This is Baron. He is a safe center noble. And Baron, this is Sax, my new warper. Nice to meet you, boy. Oh, you too, mister. It's a pleasure. The greetings out of the way, I sat on the chair on Nerus' left and listened to their chatting while he waited for supper to be served. Baron spent a while complaining about bodily needs, subordinates asking for more food and better housing, or getting into trouble from stealing from the mortals. Nerus nodded at his ramblings, his eyes not even focused on the noble, but he soon decided to get to business. They started talking about where they would be spreading the word of God next, and the methods they would use. Much to my dismay, it was for this last topic that Baron directed his attention at me. By the way, Sax, I have heard your family came up with a great way to impart gnosis. Maybe we could learn something from them. Please tell me about your time working with them. You were doing that until your wife here, yeah? Yeah. There's nothing noteworthy I can say about that time. My brow furrowed at the question, but the noble still looked cheerful. Nerus, for his part, was eyeing me, but remained silent. I hoped the noble would drop the topic and resume his conversation with the great safe center, but he insisted. Nonsense, I know it takes time, but their method guarantees a great amount of gnosis. Come on, no need to be shy. The only thing to learn from them is cowardice and treachery. I advise you to look somewhere else if you want to improve your methods. I uttered. This seemed to stun the noble, who gave me a somewhat perplexed look. Speak ill of your family. They do a wonderful job spreading blessings around like that. Wonderful job, blessings. Please do tell me what is so wonderful about luring others to a false sense of security, only to lead them to the slaughterhouse as if they were a herd of sheep. If you want more mortals on our side, perhaps you should focus on trying to gain their grace by helping rather than resorting to trickery. They already have enough reason to loathe us. That's a very juvenile way of thinking now. Preferable to thinking of scum. My words had gotten the noble angry as well. His face contracted to a pout, and he clenched his fist. Knowing he couldn't touch me, he saw a glance at Nerus, as if asking him to reprimand me. Nerus seemed attentive to our stage yet detached. His gaze was sharp as a knife when it fell on me, but not out of anger or disapproval. I looked back at him expectantly, staring into those wings of fire in the darkness within, searching for something that could help me understand him. After a few seconds, though, he sighed and looked at Baron. I beg you, forgive his behavior. Sax is a noble yourself. You should know it is unsuitable for you to resort to personal insults. I'm sorry, I lost my temper. On the other hand, you know the reason he is here is because of disagreements with his family, Baron. I expected you to be wise enough to not go prodding at sore spots. Yes, do forgive me for that. That aside, I have to agree with Sax that his family's methods might not be the right ones to pick up, especially if you're trying to turn it into a large-scale operation. If we go down this path, before long the angels will no doubt take notice and interrupt before we can show our rewards. We need to look for a more sustainable alternative. I see. Yes, I hadn't seen it from that angle. I could have sworn that at that moment, there was a scornful glance at the noble, but it only lasted a fraction of a second. I don't believe the other safe center even noticed it. Supper arrived shortly after. As we ate, the conversation topic shifted from work to share acquaintances and the such. The talk took a dark turn when Baron brought up some safe centers that had gone hollow not long ago, but they didn't dwell on the topic for long. After the blunder, I decided to eat my food in silence. I just wanted the night to end so I could go to sleep. Oh, look at the time. My warper is scheduled to come to pick me up pretty much right now. The safe center said after we finished supper. I'll tell sales to escort you out then. Thank you for visiting. Yes, thanks for your hospitality. Let's meet again another time. Nerus nodded and called the servant who led Baron out of the dining hall. I thought it was a good time for me to slip away as well. Well then, I'll get going. Just as I was getting off my feet, I felt a huge hand grab me by the shoulder, pinning me back into place. I looked up and I saw Nerus, who had gotten up from his chair at some point, staring at me with a single blink. Yes? Do not worry too much about today. Nobles can be unpleasant at times. Although I am certain you have had your fair share of experiences with them, considering your background. Still, do watch your tongue in front of guests. Yes, again, I'm sorry. I'll be more careful in the future. Good. Is there something else? Yes, it's about your family. Your father informed me not long ago that you are a second-generation Soranesiac. I see. You do not seem very surprised. As if that coward would dare keep that secret from you any longer with me living under your roof. As I just told you, we are not in front of guests right now. You do not think highly of your family. Tell me, did they bring harm upon you? Is that why you resent them? He said these last words. I never want to feel intimidated, but it was hard not to with his huge hand pinning me to the chair. That said, that wasn't the only response his actions got out of me. I felt a strange and warm tingling rising up from my stomach to my chest. It burned, yet left behind a cold sensation in its wake. An emptiness. No, they didn't do anything to me in particular. May I go now? It would be lovely to talk with you another time, sir, but I'd like to get some rest now. I smiled at him. All the tension in his face seemed to dissipate at that moment, and his hand slipped off my shoulder. Just so you know, I got in touch with the doctor to diagnose you. We're working on adding you to the Soranesiac's register now. Alright, sounds good. Nerus nodded. That is all. Have a good night. You too, sir. I exited the dining hall and made my way up to my bedchamber. Yikes, what happened there? Did I do something to upset him, or... Maybe he was still annoyed at how I talked to the noble, but he didn't seem to care moments ago. Could he have been just concerned about me? Yeah, I shouldn't have gotten intimidated. Although his eyes and the way he held me, it didn't feel bad. I didn't understand what the simple but forceful act had awakened in me yet. Even so, I was sure of one thing. I wanted to try to get close to him. I opened my eyelids. I looked at the clock and it was still very early, enough I would have preferred to keep sleeping. And my body felt restless. I couldn't stop myself from moving, nor clear my mind from thoughts about what had taken place the night before. That towering figure looming over me, the sweat he held my shoulder with, that white fur, how soft it would be if I dug my fingers in it, how warm. It was close enough I got to smell his perfume in. Electricity ran up my spine to my brain and my eyelids jolted open. Perhaps I should get up. Can't let pesky physical cravings get a hold of my mind, no sir. Well, how high would the chances of him also being interested in me be? I climbed out of bed and opened the wardrobe to retrieve my tablet and hat. Still 2 hours left until breakfast. What can I do in the meantime? I have never seen the TV in the parlor on, but checking it out is still worth a shot. If that doesn't work out, I got a lot of reading to catch up on. I settled for that plan and went downstairs. As I entered the parlor, I was received by an unexpected sight. I found Nerus sitting on one of the sofas, his 4 eyes closed and arms crossed. I wonder if he had fallen asleep like that, but soon he opened his eyes. Oh, I wasn't expecting to find you here, Lady Sister. Having trouble sleeping? I averted my eyes. A bit. Is that why you are awake already too? I decided to come here to relax before the day starts, at least. Oh, I see. I can check out the TV here. Does it have reception? No. What about video games? Do you have those? Not at all. What we do have is a video player and some old movies. Oh, also a movie would be nice too, yes? Can you join me, sir? Nerus looked away. A bothered look on his face. It made me think that he was trying to enjoy some time alone. I might be annoying him. I better excuse myself out. It's fine you don't. I'll go look for something else to do. No, come back here. As I was about to leave the parlor, Nerus called me back. It was quite the forceful tone at that. I lowered my hand and tucked my shoulders by reflex, but I managed to stand more or less straight before turning back to Nerus. He cleared his throat and got up and approached the TV. Let us watch a movie. We have just enough time. Oh, sure. What do you say I make some tea to drink while we watch, too? If that is what you wish. Wait, it won't take long. Don't start without me. As I prepared the tea, I had rattled my brain, wondering if it would be all right to sit next to Nerus during the movie. The sofa was the most comfortable spot to watch TV from, but there were other seats. But there shouldn't have been anything strange about a great sister and his warper sitting together. I was overthinking it. After bringing the tea, I sat down next to him without saying anything to avoid slipping up and making things awkward. Nerus glanced at me, and that was all. I recognized the smell of his cologne mixed with something else, an nasty smell, like that of a fire put out by a persistent bitter cold wind. He had to scatter around, unable to ignite again, becoming indistinguishable from the snow. He may start the movie, Sax. Oh, right. The movie was about giant monsters fighting for dominance. The plot was very simple, and the mortals, to my surprise, didn't seem to play a huge role, but the action and set pieces were pretty exciting. It kept me at the edge of my seat. I felt my heart sink when the bad monster dropped the good one from the stratosphere, seemingly securing its own victory. However, the comeback that followed more than made up for it. I couldn't help but clap as I attempted to sing along the few vocals during that scene. Nerus, as usual, wore a stoic expression the entire time. I questioned if he even liked the movie, but he wouldn't have suggested it if he disliked it. He wasn't one to show his excitement, I figured. In any case, this is pretty nice, even if it isn't the best kind of movie to drink tea to. Maybe I should have bought some soda instead. Well, Neville, drink it away. Well, Neville drank it anyway. How was the tea, sir? Not as refined as Ceres's, but still good. I'll take that as a compliment. And what did you think of the movie? Oh, it was so thrilling. I'm surprised you like these kinds of movies, sir. How come? I was expecting a more serious and somber movie from someone as no nonsense as you, if that makes sense. There's nothing wrong with you liking it, of course. Yes, I know. Oh, so, who made it? I would like to see more from the world this came from. Unfortunately, it is from a civilization that went extinct some time ago. Oh, but fear not, mortals have a fixation on giant monsters. You'll be surprised to learn how many of them make monster features of this kind. It is a very common archetype. You can't blame them. It's a fun concept. So, sir, what does it matter? I held my mouth half open, looked a bit stupid, so I tried to come up with something to say. But I can't ask him. I know pretty much his entire routine by now, so I hope it isn't as impertinent. I hope it isn't an impertinent question, but when do you go out with your friends? I imagine it gets lonely in here after all. Nerus blinked at my question, his gaze shifting ever so slightly. I meet with the other great sage sisters when summoned. But that is part of your work, right? Do you ever meet just for pleasure? No. Although, if it is for pleasure, I do occasionally visit a brothel in order to relieve my earthly needs. Oh, I see. Geez, he's a bit too straightforward. Anyway, so he's a hermit. An odd quality for a leader to have, but I suppose he doesn't let it get in his way. I was starting to feel strange. My throat burned, and there was an oppressive sensation on my chest, almost as if someone was trying to crush it or suffocate me. But I didn't have time to dwell on it. I noticed Nerus leaning just a bit closer, his nose twitching. What is he sniffing around for? Is something the matter? He smells strange, suddenly. He can't tell if my mood changes from a smell, can he? His head is canine and safe, so this should be compromising. Time to escape. Well, I'll take this to my kitchen now. I bet Seth preparing breakfast right now. I could stop by and give him a hand while at it. I jumped off the sofa and walked to the cart I had used to bring the tea. However, Nerus stopped me from leaving again. I turned to see him visiting with my tablet some. Wait, want to inform you that you will be performing a job other than a delivery soon. Oh? I meant to bring it up yesterday, but due to the visit and you heading to bed early, I did not have a chance to bring it up. What will I be doing, sir? It's simple. I must attend to a great sister gathering at the capital. You will be accompanying me. I felt my eyes lighting up at the prospect. That sounds exciting, indeed, but how odd. I was expecting you to get nervous. Oh, no, as long as there aren't a lot of silly rules for me to break, that should be fine. I have attended to a couple of gatherings when living with my family. So you have. Do you know how to dance sax? Of course. And can you increase your height? That I'm afraid I can't do. Why? There might be a ballroom event. Use a great sage sister and their warper will form a pair. But in our case, our height difference will be an impediment. You don't look so disappointed. We won't be the only ones not forming a pair. If you would like to participate, you can look for a partner more fitting for you. Yes, you're right. Did I look that let down? We will attend the gathering next week. Make sure to look your best for the occasion. Yes, sir. After that, I exited the parlor and started heading to the kitchen. That could have gone a lot worse, all things considered. Is this jealousy I'm feeling over the brothel detail? I have to still try to keep him busy so he doesn't have time to visit one again. Although I doubt he wants to spend all his free time together. Besides, it's as if there were walls all around him. He doesn't know what's beneath. Maybe he just doesn't want to get involved with me on a personal level. I shouldn't forget why I'm here. This infatuation will pass. We got introduced to Sax and Nerus. So as what Nerus described, Sax is a soul amnesiac, which means that he has an illness that could possibly kill him. So it's kind of unique among sage sisters. It has something to do with the soul, and that once I think if sage sisters die, then they still have their soul. I mean, even their bodies die, they still have their soul, and then once they get reincarnated, they still keep the memories and personalities that they had in their previous life. But this doesn't. But this is not the case for Saxons, Solonesiacs. I think, like once they die, I guess their souls kind of disappear, or maybe they do reincarnate, but they don't have any memories of who they were before. Like they're like a totally different person, I guess. Anyway, so Sax did a prank at his with his family, and as a punishment, he got kicked out. He was taken to Nerus instead, Devil of Madness, so he could be under his care. And it seems to slowly, the relationship between the two of them seems to start to grow slowly. It's not going too fast. It's a little more slow and gradual, which, in my opinion, is what needed for a healthy relationship instead of doing everything so fast. So, I think they should know each other more and take things slow, just gradually know more about each other. So next time we'll see Sax warp Nerus to this conference of great sea sifters and see what it's about. Nerus said there would be some dancing there, so, and that he has some Sax that he knew how to dance, so we'll see them dancing on there and see what else will happen at this conference. So thank y'all very much for watching. Bye.